I built a business for 30 years, then one recession erased my life. My name is Daniel. I'm a contractor who used to employ 17 people and drive past houses I built with my name on the permits. Today I count the bus fare and sleep where security guards can't see me. A year ago, I had blueprints on my kitchen table and my daughter's college fund in the bank. People think business failure happens overnight. It doesn't. It happens in phone calls. First, the Morrisons backed out of their custom home. Then the commercial project fell through. I kept paying my crew with money I didn't have, thinking Christmas would turn things around. I burned through 30 years of savings in 3 months, telling myself I was saving the company. My wife moved to Phoenix. My truck got repossessed. The foreclosure notice came on a Tuesday. I didn't plan to become invisible. I just ran out of places to be visible. Let me take you back to that first phone call and the lie I told myself about temporary setbacks. When a man who built his whole identity around providing for others suddenly can't provide for himself, what's left to lose? His pride, his family, or his will to rebuild? The phone rang while I was drinking my morning coffee, blueprints spread across my desk like always. October 15th, 2008. I remember the date because it's written on the legal pad where I scribbled, Morrison, canceled, in black ink. Daniel, this is Steve Morrison. His voice sounded thin, like he'd been practicing what to say. We need to talk about the house. I set down my coffee. The Morrison project was a $340,000 custom home, halfway through framing. 6 months of work, materials already ordered, my crew scheduled through Christmas. What's up, Steve? We're backing out. The words came fast, like he wanted to get them over with. Our startup lost funding. The venture capital dried up overnight. We can't complete the purchase. I stared at the Morrison blueprints. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, custom kitchen island that Karen Morrison had spent 2 weeks designing. My signature in the bottom right corner. Steve, we have a contract. Materials on site. Labor invested. I know. We'll pay for what's done so far, but we can't move forward. After I hung up, I walked the Morrison job site. The house stood half naked, studs and subflooring exposed to October sky. Rick Martinez, my foreman, was measuring wall openings for windows that might never come. Everything okay, boss? Rick asked when he saw my face. Just working through some details. I couldn't say the words yet. Admitting the cancellation would make it real that I did the math on my yellow legal pad. Materials purchased, $47,000. Labor invested, $31,000. Materials ordered but not delivered, $18,000. The cancellation fee in our contract would cover some of it, but not all. Not even close. That evening, Linda was making dinner when I got home. Spaghetti, the kids' favorite. Normal sounds, running water, cabinet doors closing, Jessica calling from her dorm room to check in. How was your day? Linda asked, stirring sauce. Fine. Good. The Morrison project hit a snag, but we'll work it out. She looked at me over the wooden spoon. 25 years of marriage teaches you when someone's not telling the whole truth. What kind of snag? Client financing. Happens all the time. I opened a beer and sat at the kitchen table where I'd drawn my first blueprints 30 years ago. Nothing we can't handle. Linda nodded, but I caught her glance at the newspaper folded to the business section. Headlines about bank failures and credit markets. She wasn't stupid. None of us were. We just weren't ready to believe how fast things could change. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom Brennan, the commercial developer. Need to move up our meeting. Can you do 9 a.m. tomorrow instead of Friday? I stared at the message. Tom Brennan never moved meetings up. He was methodical, planned everything weeks in advance. Moving up a meeting meant urgency. Urgency meant bad news that I typed back. See you at 9. The Riverside Commercial Complex had been my insurance policy. A $280,000 job that would carry Daniel Whitaker Construction through the winter slow season. Tom Brennan and I shook hands on it in August, back when handshakes still meant something in construction. His office smelled like coffee and copier toner. Tom sat behind a desk covered with manila folders, each one probably representing projects like mine. Projects that weren't happening anymore. Daniel, I'll cut to the chase. Tom's usually steady hands fidgeted with a pen. We're canceling the Riverside project. The words hit like cold water. Tom, we start excavation Monday. Permits are pulled, subcontractors lined up. Bank pulled our construction loan. Credit markets are frozen solid. He slid a folder across the desk. Cancellation paperwork. We'll cover your planning costs and permit fees, but that's all I can do. I opened the folder. Legal language that boiled down to, your $280,000 job just became a $3,200 consolation prize. This isn't just bad luck, is it? I asked. Tom shook his head. Every project I have is getting reviewed. Half are getting canceled. The banks are scared, Daniel. Really scared. Driving back to the office, I listened to news radio for the first time in months. Lehman Brothers collapsed. AIG bailed out. Something called toxic assets that nobody could explain but everybody was afraid of. The radio host used words like unprecedented and crisis. I pulled into my office parking lot and sat in the truck for 10 minutes, looking at my employees' cars. Rick's old Ford pickup, Kyle's Honda with the dented bumper, Sarah's minivan with soccer ball stickers. 17 people who trusted me to keep them working. Inside, Rick was waiting with next week's crew schedule. Morning, boss. Ready to look at the Riverside timeline. Let's talk in my office. I opened the company checkbook. Payroll Friday, $11,400. Bank balance, $8,200. The Morrison cancellation fee would cover one more payroll, maybe two if I didn't pay myself. After that, the math got ugly. Rick, we need to talk about cutting hours. The Riverside project got delayed. Delayed how long? I looked at his face. 8 years we'd worked together. He'd helped me grow from a 3-man crew to 17 employees. His kids called me Uncle Daniel. I don't know yet. Maybe through Christmas. Rick nodded slowly. He'd been in construction long enough to know what delayed usually meant. You want me to tell the crew? Let me handle it. Give me until tomorrow to figure out the details. That night, Linda found me at the kitchen table with calculator and checkbook, surrounded by crumpled yellow sheets covered in numbers that wouldn't add up right. How bad is it? She asked. It's manageable. Just need to adjust some timelines. She sat down across from me. Daniel, talk to me. Really talk to me. I wanted to tell her everything. How 2 phone calls had just cost us $300,000 in work. How I might have to lay off half my crew before Halloween. How the business we'd built together over 30 years was suddenly standing on quicksand. Instead, I closed the checkbook. It's just market stuff. Temporary. Things will pick up after the election. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my bank's number. I let the bank call go to voicemail. Whatever they wanted could wait until after I figured out how to tell my crew that half of them were losing their jobs. Friday morning, I got to the office early. Rick was already there, organizing tools for jobs that weren't happening anymore. The rest of the crew trickled in over the next hour. Kyle grabbed coffee and joked about the Dodgers' playoff chances. Manuel showed me pictures of his daughter's birthday party. Normal morning sounds in a world that had stopped being normal. Can everyone gather in the main room? I called out. Need to talk about some schedule changes. 17 faces looking at me. Some concerned, some curious. Rick knew what was coming. I could see it in his eyes. As you all know, the construction market is going through some changes right now. 2 of our major projects have been postponed indefinitely. I opened the folder with their final paychecks. My signature on each one felt like signing confessions. I'm going to have to lay off 9 people, effective today. This isn't about performance. You're all good workers. This is about work that isn't there anymore. The room went quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and distant traffic on the 405. Kyle raised his hand like he was in school. For how long? I don't know. Hopefully temporary, but I can't make promises about timing. I read the names. Kyle, Manuel, 3 others who'd been with me less than 2 years. 4 more who'd started just last spring. Rick would stay, along with my core crew of 7. Watching them clean out their lockers was like watching a house get demolished. Kyle asked about unemployment benefits. Manuel wanted to know if I'd be a reference. Sarah, my only female employee, cried quietly while packing her tools. This is bullshit, Kyle said, loud enough for everyone to hear. 2 weeks ago you were talking about Christmas bonuses. He was right. 2 weeks ago, I thought I had $620,000 in contracts lined up. 2 weeks ago, Christmas bonuses seemed realistic. Kyle, I understand you're angry. Do you? I just bought a house, Daniel. My wife is pregnant. What am I supposed to tell her? I didn't have an answer that would help him. The truth, that the entire economy was collapsing around us, wouldn't make his mortgage payment. After everyone left, I sat alone in the office that suddenly felt too big. 8 empty desks. Silence where voices used to be. The coffee pot Kyle always made too strong. Manuel's family photos still taped to his workstation. My phone rang. The bank again. This time, I answered. Daniel Whitaker Construction. Mr. Whitaker, this is Janet Morrison from First Pacific Bank. I need to discuss your business line of credit. Janet Morrison. No relation to my canceled clients, but the name felt like a bad joke. What about it? Due to current market conditions, we're conducting risk assessments on all commercial accounts. Your line of credit is being called in early. The full balance of $180,000 is due within 30 days. The words didn't register at first. The line of credit had been my safety net for 10 years. I'd used it to smooth cash flow between projects, always paying it down when big jobs completed. Janet, I've never missed a payment. My account is current. I understand, Mr. Whitaker. This isn't about your payment history. It's about the bank's exposure in the current environment. 30 days. 30 days. After she hung up, I opened my personal banking app on my computer. Checking account, $3,400. Savings account, $67,000. The money Linda and I had saved for 25 years. Jessica's college fund. Our retirement nest, EGG.IT, wasn't enough. Not even close. But it was a start. I could transfer enough to make payroll for the remaining crew, buy some time to figure out the rest. The line of credit didn't have to be the end of everything. I started typing a wire transfer for $25,000 from savings to business checking. Just temporary, I told myself. Just until things turned around. The cursor blinked in the amount field, waiting for me to confirm the transfer that would begin the end of everything I'd built. My finger hovered over the enter key. I pressed enter. $25,000 moved from our family savings into Daniel Whitaker Construction's checking account. The transfer confirmation felt like signing my own death warrant, but I told myself it was smart business. A bridge loan to myself until the market recovered. The next morning, a certified letter arrived from First Pacific Bank. Official letterhead, legal language. But the message was simple. Pay $180,000 in 30 days, or we'll take everything with my name on it. I spread my financial statements across the kitchen table. Personal assets. The house with $140,000 equity. 2 trucks worth maybe $35,000 total. Linda's car worth $12,000. Tools and equipment. Another $40,000 if I sold everything. On paper, I had enough to cover the line of credit. On paper, in reality, selling assets takes time. House sales take months. Equipment auctions take weeks. The bank wanted cash in 30 days. I called my accountant, Mike Rodriguez. We'd worked together for 15 years. Daniel, what are your options for new financing? In this market, nobody's lending to construction companies. Then you're looking at liquidation. Sell what you can, pay what you owe, start over. Start over. At 52 years old, after 30 years building something that employed 17 people and put 3 kids through college. What about bankruptcy? Chapter 11 would protect the business assets, but with no income stream, you'd just be delaying the inevitable. Chapter 7 would liquidate everything anyway. I hung up and opened my laptop. Business bank balance, $33,200 after the transfer. Not enough for another payroll, let alone the line of credit. That evening, Linda found me staring at real estate websites, looking at our house's estimated value. Daniel, what are you doing? Just checking market conditions. She sat down beside me. Our market conditions? I showed her the screen. Zillow estimates $320,000. We owe $180,000. That's $140,000 equity. Equity for what? The business line of credit. The bank called it in. Linda went very still. How much? $180,000. She closed the laptop. We're not losing our house to save your business. It's not losing the house. It's using our equity strategically. Daniel, listen to yourself. This house is where we raised our children. Where Jessica learned to walk. Where your grandson will come for Christmas. I wanted to argue, but she was right. I was talking about gambling our home on a business that was already dead. I just couldn't admit it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Dad, can we talk this weekend? I have some exciting news about my thesis defense. I stared at the message. My daughter had exciting news, and I was sitting here planning to mortgage her childhood home to save a construction company with no construction contracts. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly. The walls seemed to be closing in. I need some air, I told Linda. Outside, I walked around the neighborhood I'd lived in for 20 years. past the Hendersons' house where I'd installed a deck in 1995, past the Chin's place where I'd remodeled their kitchen. Signs of my work everywhere. But none of it could save me now. When I got back, Linda was on the phone with her sister in Phoenix. November passed in a blur of wire transfers and rationalizations. $25,000 to cover payroll. $15,000 for material suppliers who threatened to cut off credit. $12,000 for truck payments and insurance. Each transfer felt logical in the moment, necessary to keep the business breathing until contracts started flowing again. They never did. By December, I'd moved $67,000 from personal savings into the business. Every dollar Linda and I had saved over 25 years of marriage. Gone. Daniel, we need to talk, Linda said one morning, holding our savings account statement. Balance, $847. It's temporary. After Christmas, construction always picks up. With what money? You've transferred everything we have. I showed her my yellow legal pad covered in calculations. If the Patterson remodel comes through, that's $40,000. The Riverside project might get refinanced in spring. We just need to bridge the gap. Linda studied my numbers. These are all maybes, Daniel. What about definites? What about our mortgage payment? What about groceries? We have my business account, which you just emptied to pay your crew. She was right. The business checking balance was $340. Not enough for next week's payroll, let alone our $2,800 mortgage payment due January 1st. I can sell the work truck, I said. For how much? Maybe $15,000. That covers 1 month's expenses. What about February? March? I didn't have an answer. Every solution I proposed just pushed the problem further down the road. Between Christmas and New Year's, I sold both work trucks. The buyers were contractors who'd survived the recession by staying small, avoiding debt, working jobs I used to consider beneath me. They paid cash and didn't ask questions about why I was selling. $15,000 for the Ford, $12,000 for the Chevy, $27,000 total. That I deposited the money in our personal account and paid the January mortgage. Linda watched me make the payment online, both of us knowing it might be the last one we could afford. What happens next month? She asked. I'll figure something out. Daniel, you can't figure your way out of mathematics. We have no income and no savings. That night, I lay awake listening to Linda breathe beside me. She'd started sleeping closer to her edge of the bed, like she needed distance even in sleep. Outside, January rain drummed against windows that would belong to someone else soon if I couldn't find another miracle. My phone lit up with an email from a contractor in Arizona. He'd heard I was available for consulting work. Temporary position, 6 months, decent pay. The catch? I'd have to relocate to Phoenix. I stared at the offer until 3 a.m., trying to imagine starting over in Arizona. Leaving the business, the house, the life I'd built. It felt like admitting defeat. Instead, I deleted the email. In the morning, Linda found me at the kitchen table with the business checkbook, trying to make $340 cover a $2,400 payroll. I need to sell my car, she said quietly. I looked up. Linda, no. It's worth $12,000. That buys us time to make better decisions. I won't let you sacrifice your car for my business. She sat down across from me. It's not your business anymore, Daniel. It's our survival. The classified ad ran the next day. 2004 Honda Accord, excellent condition, $11,500. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday in February. Notice of default in bold red letters across the top. We were 3 months behind on the mortgage. $8,400 total, which sounded manageable until I opened my wallet and counted $23 in cash. Linda read the notice over my shoulder. 90 days to cure the default or the house goes to auction. I know what it means. Do you? Because you've been pretending this wasn't coming for months. She was right. I'd been living in a fantasy where something would save us at the last minute. A big contract. A loan approval. A miracle. Linda had been printing apartment listings from the library computer. 1-bedroom places in Phoenix near her sister Carol. Rent under $800. Schools for our youngest 2 kids who were still at home. I'm driving to Phoenix this weekend, she said. Carol found 3 places we can afford. We, the kids and me. You can come when you're ready to be honest about our situation. I walked through the house that afternoon, seeing it through a stranger's eyes. The kitchen where we'd hosted 23 Thanksgivings. The living room where Jessica took her first steps. The master bedroom where we talked about dreams that seemed possible once to in Jessica's old room. Her academic awards still hung on the wall. Honor roll certificates, science fair ribbons, the acceptance letter to UC Davis. I'd promised her anything was possible with hard work and education. Now I was about to lose the house where those promises were made. My phone rang. Jessica's number. Hi, sweetheart. Dad, I've been thinking about taking a semester off. Come home and help with whatever's going on. My throat tightened. Everything's fine here. You focus on school. Dad, I'm not stupid. Mom's been asking weird questions about Phoenix. You haven't returned my calls. Something's happening. I could tell her the truth. That the business was dead. That we were losing the house. That her college fund was gone and her father had failed at the one thing he thought he was good at. Instead, I lied. Just some market adjustments. Nothing that affects your education. Are you sure? Positive. How's your thesis coming? We talked for 20 minutes about her research, her professors, her plans after graduation. Normal father-daughter conversation about a future I'd helped make possible and was now too proud to admit I couldn't afford. After we hung up, I sat in her empty room until dark, surrounded by evidence of promises I'd kept when keeping promises was easier. The next morning, Linda started packing. You're really leaving? I'm saving our family, she said, folding clothes into boxes. Someone has to. That weekend, I watched a moving truck carry away 25 years of shared life. Linda hugged me goodbye in the driveway, but it felt like condolence. Call us when you're ready to tell the truth, she said. That I waved as their car disappeared around the corner. Then went inside to a house that echoed with emptiness. The house felt like a museum after Linda left. Her coffee mug still in the sink. Her magazines on the coffee table. Her side of the closet empty, but still smelling like her perfume. I sat in my recliner, wearing the same clothes for 3 days, while boxes of her stuff waited by the front door. The moving truck had taken the obvious things, clothes, pictures, the kids' belongings. But Linda had left decisions about furniture for me to make. That I couldn't make any decisions about furniture or anything else. My phone rang constantly. Creditors, suppliers, the bank. I stopped answering. What was the point? I couldn't pay anyone, couldn't promise anything, couldn't even explain how a successful business had disappeared so quickly. Jessica called Wednesday evening. Dad, I've been talking to Mom. She says you're restructuring the business. Another lie Linda told to protect me. Or maybe to protect Jessica from the truth about her father. That's right. Just temporary adjustments. If you need help with anything, everything's under control here. Okay, but Dad, I love you. Whatever's happening, we'll figure it out together. I hung up and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because I was losing money or the house or the business. Because my daughter loved me and believed in me, and I was lying to her about everything. Thursday morning, Linda called. The sheriff's deputy will be there Monday to complete the eviction. You need to be out by then. I know. Daniel, where will you go? I hadn't thought about it. For months, I've been focused on saving the house, not planning what to do if I lost it. I'll figure something out. Carol says you can stay here until… No. The word came out harder than I intended. I'll handle it. Your pride isn't keeping you warm, Daniel. After she hung up, I walked through the house one more time. The kitchen where I'd drawn blueprints for hundreds of projects. The living room where I'd taught Jessica to read blueprints when she was 8. The garage where I'd stored tools that were now sold or repossessed. Saturday, neighbors started pretending not to see me. The Hendersons walked their dog past my house without looking up. The Chins got their mail when my truck wasn't in the driveway. I understood. Nobody wants to watch someone's life fall apart in real time. Sunday night, I packed everything I could fit in my truck. Clothes, tools, photo albums, important papers. Everything else, furniture Linda didn't take, appliances we'd bought together. Books I'd collected over 30 years, would belong to the bank tomorrow. I sat in my recliner one last time, looking around the living room where I'd watched my kids grow up, where Linda and I had planned the future that was ending tomorrow. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Dad, I'm so proud of you. Mom says you're handling everything perfectly. I turned off the lights and walked outside to my truck, where everything I own now fit in the back seat and a small trailer. The sheriff's deputy would arrive in 6 hours to lock the door on 30 years of life that I had nowhere to go. The parking lot behind Denny's seemed like the safest choice. 24 hours of fluorescent light and activity, security cameras, employees coming and going. Not the kind of place where anyone would bother a man sleeping in his truck. I pulled into a space far from the building, but close enough to use their bathroom if needed. 11 p.m. on a Monday night in March. Cool but not cold. I could do this for a few days while I figured out next steps. I brought 2 blankets, a pillow, and a thermos of coffee. The truck's bench seat folded down almost flat. Not comfortable, but manageable. The radio kept me company. Talk shows mostly. People calling in about politics, sports, personal problems that seemed smaller than mine. I kept the volume low so I wouldn't attract attention. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Every car that entered the parking lot made me tense. Every footstep near the truck made me hold my breath. Around 3, a police cruiser pulled up beside me. The officer tapped on my window with his flashlight. "Good evening, sir. Can I see some ID?" I handed over my driver's license, trying to look like someone who had a reason to be there. "You okay?" "Having car trouble. Just tired." Pulled over to rest. He studied my license, then looked at the blankets and pillow. "Mr. Whitaker, you can't sleep here permanently. This is private property." "I understand. Just tonight." He handed back my license. "You can stay until morning, but then you need to move along. There's a shelter downtown if you need somewhere more permanent." After he left, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt amplified. The restaurant's exhaust fan. Traffic on the nearby freeway. My own heartbeat. Dawn came slowly, gray light replacing the parking lot fluorescence. I started the truck and drove to a gas station bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. In the mirror, I looked like exactly what I was. A man who'd slept in his truck. I bought coffee and a breakfast burrito, then sat in the parking lot trying to plan the day. The truck needed gas. I needed work. I needed a place to sleep that wouldn't attract police attention. Most of all, I needed to accept that this wasn't temporary. The house was gone. Linda was gone. The business was gone. This truck was my home now, at least until I could figure out something better. My phone showed 17 missed calls from creditors and 1 text from Jessica. "Hope you're having a good week. Dad, call me when you get a chance." I turned off the phone and drove toward a construction site where I'd seen day laborers gathering at dawn. Maybe someone needed help. Maybe I could earn enough for gas and food. Maybe this was rock bottom, and things could only get better. The maybe felt like lying to myself. But it was all I had left, the day labor site. 40 men waited for work. Some had been doing this for years. Others looked like me. Recent additions to the world of daily survival. A contractor in a white pickup pointed at 6 men. You. I wasn't one of them. I drove to another site. Then another. By noon, I still had no work and a quarter tank of gas. The mathematics of homelessness were becoming clear. Everything costs more when you have nothing. I woke up Tuesday morning to the sound of hydraulic lifts. Through my truck's rear window, I watched 2 men in coveralls hooking chains to my back axle. "Excuse me." I climbed out of the truck, still wearing yesterday's clothes. "What are you doing?" The older repo man, maybe 50, looked up from his paperwork. "Daniel Whitaker?" "Yes." "Vehicle repossession. You're 4 payments behind." "For payments?" $1,100 total. The same amount I used to spend on dinner for clients when business was good. "I can catch up the payments," I said, knowing I couldn't. "Sorry, Mr. Whitaker. Banks already made the decision." I gathered my belongings while they worked. Everything I owned had to fit in 2 duffel bags now. Clothes, important papers, a few tools, family photos. The rest, camping gear, extra blankets, the cooler I'd bought for this exact situation, had to stay in the truck. "Can I get my insurance papers from the glove box?" "Sure. Take anything that's yours." Personal possessions. Like the truck hadn't been making payments on itself for 3 years, like it wasn't as much mine as the bank's until this morning. They finished the hookup in 15 minutes. Professional, efficient, polite. Just men doing their jobs like I used to do mine. "Good luck," the older guy said before they drove away with my last shelter. I stood in the Home Depot parking lot at 7 a.m. with 2 duffel bags, watching my truck disappear down Harbor Boulevard. No transportation, no shelter. $31 in cash. The day labor site was 2 miles away. I started walking. An hour later, I joined 20 other men waiting for work. The contractor in the white pickup was the same one from yesterday. "Roofing crew," he announced. 8 hours, minimum wage, cash at the end. "Need 4 guys with transportation." Transportation. The word that separated the employable from the unemployable in construction. I can work, I called out. Just need a ride to the site. He looked at me, then at my duffel bags. You got tools? Some. Sorry, man. Need guys with their own transportation and full tool sets. 20 minutes later, another contractor arrived. Landscaping work. Same requirements. Transportation and tools that by noon. I'd been passed over 6 times. The men with trucks and tools got work. The men with nothing got nothing. I walked to the bus stop and studied the schedule. Routes I'd never needed to learn because I'd always had a truck. The Orange County Transportation Authority suddenly became my lifeline to employment, to services, to anywhere that wasn't this parking lot. The bus fare was $2. For a man with $31. Every expense required calculation. I rode the bus to downtown Santa Ana, where the police officer had mentioned a shelter. The building looked like a cross between a school and a prison. Institutional brick. Small windows. Men smoking cigarettes outside. Inside, a woman behind bulletproof glass explained the system. Emergency beds are first come, first served. You can get in line at 4 p.m. 90-day maximum stay. Current waiting list is about 70 people. 70 people. I was number 71. How long is the wait usually? Could be a few days, could be a few weeks. Depends on turnover. I filled out paperwork with an address I no longer had and a phone number connected to a service I couldn't afford much longer. Any other options? There's a day shelter that opens at 8 a.m. Bathroom facilities, mail service, case management. But you can't sleep there. Outside, I sat on a bench and did the mathematics of survival. Meals at McDonald's, $6 per day. Phone service, $8 per week. Bus fare for job hunting, $10 per week. My $31 would last exactly 3 days. The sun was setting when I realized I had nowhere to sleep tonight. I walked until I found a 24-hour laundromat, paid $3 to wash my shirt, and sat in a plastic chair until the owner asked me to leave at midnight. Then I walked the streets until dawn, carrying 2 duffel bags and learning the difference between tired and exhausted. March became April while I learned the rules of a world I'd never imagined joining. McDonald's became my office. A large coffee cost $1.07 and bought me 4 hours of sitting time, access to electrical outlets, and unlimited refills if I was subtle about it. But the manager, a woman about Linda's age, started recognizing me after a week. Sir, this is a restaurant, not a library. I'm just finishing up. You've been here since we opened. I bought another coffee and moved to a different McDonald's. Then another one. They got tired of me too. Phone charging required strategy. Libraries had outlets, but closed at 6 p.m. Coffee shops watched for people who weren't buying anything. The bus station downtown had charging stations, but security guards limited use to actual travelers. Laundry meant choosing between clean clothes and food. The coin laundromat cost $6 per load. 2 days of eating for 20 minutes of washing. Bathroom access became a constant concern. Public restrooms closed at night. Restaurant bathrooms required purchasing something. Gas stations were hit or miss. I learned which churches served meals and when. Monday dinner at St. Augustine's. Wednesday lunch at First Methodist. Friday breakfast at the Salvation Army. The food was free, but the cost was sitting through services or intake interviews, answering questions about my situation from volunteers who meant well but didn't understand. Day labor sites became my primary focus. 5 a.m. arrival for 6 a.m. selection. Men with trucks got picked first. Men with tools got picked second. Men with nothing waited until noon, then went home empty-handed. I got picked twice in 3 weeks. One day digging trenches for a landscaper, cash payment at sunset. Another day cleaning construction debris, 8 hours for $60. The money disappeared faster than it arrived. Bus fare to job sites. Food that didn't require cooking. Phone service to stay connected to potential work. Night, I rotated between locations. Behind 24-hour businesses where security cameras might deter crime. Under freeway overpasses where other homeless people gathered. In parks until police moved us along. Sleep came in fragments. 2 hours here, 1 hour there. Always listening for footsteps or voices that meant trouble. My appearance deteriorated faster than I expected. Clothes wrinkled despite careful folding. Hair unwashed despite daily attempts at grooming in public bathrooms. Shoes wearing thin from walking everywhere. People started looking through me instead of at me. Store clerks, bus drivers, other pedestrians. I was becoming invisible in plain sight. The emergency shelter waiting list never moved. 70 people ahead of me, then 71, then 68, then 73. Mathematical proof that demand exceeded supply in the arithmetic of desperation. My phone service got disconnected in late April. The bill seemed manageable when I had a house and income. Now it represented 4 days of food. Without a phone, job hunting became nearly impossible. Contractors needed to reach applicants quickly. Day labor relied on morning callbacks. Even the shelter required a contact number for their waiting list. I found pay phones at gas stations and called potential employers from scraps of paper with job listings. Most numbers went to voicemail. Nobody called back. Linda tried reaching me twice before my phone died. I saw her missed calls but couldn't afford to return them. What would I say? That I was sleeping outside and hadn't showered in 3 days? Better to let her think I was somewhere handling things that by May. I'd been invisible for 2 months. Long enough to understand that homelessness wasn't a temporary problem to solve, but a condition to survive. Long enough to realize that everything I'd believed about work and effort and deserving your circumstances was naive. Long enough to stop expecting rescue and start planning for endurance. The mathematics were clear, with no address, no transportation, no tools, and no references who would vouch for a man who'd lost everything. Employment remained theoretically possible, but practically elusive. Some mornings, I forgot what I was working toward. Some evenings, I forgot what I was working from. But I kept moving, kept trying, kept believing that somewhere in this new arithmetic of survival, there had to be a solution I hadn't calculated yet. That I was standing in line at the day labor site when Tom Bradley recognized me. We'd bid against each other for 15 years, back when I had a company worth bidding with. Daniel Whitaker. I turned around, hoping he was talking to someone else. Tom looked exactly the same. Clean work clothes, truck keys in his hand, the confidence of a man with somewhere to be. Tom, how's business? Surviving. You know how it is. His eyes took in my wrinkled shirt, my duffel bag, the fact that I was standing in a day labor line at 6 a.m. What brings you here? Just picking up some extra work. Between projects. We both knew I was lying. Tom had built his business on knowing every contractor in Orange County. If I was between projects, he'd have heard about my next job. Right. Well, good to see you. He walked toward his truck without looking back. Within an hour, 3 contractors had driven past the day labor site. Word travels fast in construction. By afternoon, everyone would know that Daniel Whitaker was competing for minimum wage pickup work. The foreman called names for a concrete crew. Mine wasn't among them. Tomorrow, he told the remaining men. Come back tomorrow. I caught the bus to a construction site in Costa Mesa where I'd heard they needed cleanup help. The supervisor, a guy named Mike who used to subcontract electrical work for me, spotted me walking across the parking lot. Daniel, what are you doing here? Looking for work. Heard you might need some help. Mike's expression shifted from surprise to something like embarrassment. We're all staffed up right now. Maybe try Pacific Construction? They might have something. Pacific Construction was owned by Jim Morrison, another old competitor. Another conversation I didn't want to have. I spent the afternoon walking between job sites, watching men I used to hire drive past without acknowledging me. The construction network that had supported my business for 30 years was now working against me. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew Daniel Whitaker had fallen hard to AT sunset. I sat on a bus bench and counted my money. $14. Enough for food tomorrow, maybe the day after if I was careful. My reflection in the bus shelter's glass showed a man I barely recognized. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, clothes that had been cleaned 3 days ago, but now carried the smell of sleeping. Rough. A text notification buzzed on my phone. The service would be disconnected in 24 hours unless I paid the overdue balance. I turned off the phone to save battery. Whatever message was waiting could stay unread. I couldn't afford to know what I was missing. The evening bus was half empty. Working people heading home to houses with addresses, mailboxes, front doors that locked from the inside. Normal people living normal lives in the world I'd fallen out of. I rode to the end of the line and back, killing time until the library closed, and I had to find somewhere to spend another night at the downtown stop. I saw Tom Bradley's truck at a red light. He was on his phone, probably telling someone about seeing Daniel Whitaker in the day labor line, adding another detail to the story of how fast things could change in construction. The light turned green and he drove away, back to his life of contracts and crews and problems that could be solved with tools and effort. I walked toward the 24-hour laundromat, where I could sit in plastic chairs until midnight and pretend I was waiting for my clothes to dry. Tomorrow I'd try again. Different sites, different supervisors, different chances to explain why a man who once employed 17 people was asking for 8 hours of cleanup work. But tonight, I was just another invisible man in a city full of people who had somewhere to be. The text arrived at 2 a.m. while I was sitting on a loading dock behind a strip mall in Anaheim. I'd been sleeping there for a week, hidden between dumpsters where security guards couldn't see me. "Dad, you missed my graduation. Are you okay?" I stared at the phone screen for 20 minutes. June 12th. Jessica's graduation from UC Davis. The day I'd been planning for since she was 8 years old and announced. She wanted to be an engineer like her dad. I'd missed it, not because I forgot, not because I was busy, because I was homeless and ashamed and too proud to admit that the father who'd taught her to read blueprints couldn't afford a bus ticket to Sacramento. I started typing responses and deleted them all. "Sorry, work emergency came up. Congratulations, sweetheart." Delete. "So proud of you. Sorry I couldn't make it. Business crisis." Delete. "Had to handle some urgent contracts. We'll celebrate soon." Delete. "How do you tell your daughter that you've been sleeping behind a strip mall for 6 days? That you haven't showered in a week? That you're wearing the same shirt you wore to her high school graduation 3 years ago, except now it's stained and smells like exhaust and desperation? How do you explain that the man who promised her anything was possible with hard work and education has become living proof that sometimes hard work isn't enough?" The phone battery was at 15%. I'd been rationing power for 3 days, turning it on only for emergencies. This felt like an emergency, but I couldn't figure out what emergency response would help. I typed, "Sorry I missed it. Something came up with work. So proud of you. Love you." My finger hovered over the send button. Even this felt like too much truth and not enough truth at the same time. The phone died mid-sentence. I sat in the darkness listening to traffic on the 405 freeway. Delivery trucks making early morning runs, the distant sound of hydraulic brakes and diesel engines. The sounds of commerce and purpose, of people going places with jobs to do and paychecks to earn. Jessica's graduation had been yesterday morning. She'd walked across the stage in her cap and gown, received her diploma, smiled for photos with Linda and her siblings. Everything we'd planned for and saved for and worked toward for 23 years, and I'd been here, hiding behind a dumpster, too ashamed to be the father she deserved. The loading dock was concrete and cold, but I couldn't move. Every direction felt wrong. Every choice felt like another failure. Dawn came slowly, gray light replacing the orange glow of streetlights. Early morning joggers passed on the sidewalk 50 feet away, starting their days with purpose and energy. None of them looked toward the loading dock where I sat with everything I owned in 2 duffel bags. I was invisible to their world now. A man without address or employment or reason to exist in public spaces during business hours. By 7 a.m., the strip mall was opening. Employees arriving for work, customers starting their daily routines. I gathered my bags and walked toward the bus stop. Another day of searching for work that required tools I'd sold and transportation I'd lost out on the bus. I watched families through apartment windows. Parents getting kids ready for school, normal morning conversations over breakfast. Lives that continued in predictable patterns because the people living them had jobs and homes, and reasons to believe tomorrow would be better than today. Jessica was probably having brunch with Linda and the family, celebrating her achievement, talking about graduate school or job prospects or the future she'd earned with 4 years of hard work. A future I'd helped make possible and was now too broken to share. The bus stopped at the day labor site. 23 men waiting for work. I joined the line and tried to look like someone worth hiring, but all I could think about was Jessica's text, and the silence where my response should have been. September arrived with the first hint of cooler weather and 6 months of sleeping rough carved into my face. I was collecting aluminum cans behind a restaurant when the back door opened and a woman came out carrying a bucket of grease. She saw me crouched beside the dumpster and stopped. "You hungry?" Most people asked if I was okay or told me to move along. This woman asked if I was hungry. Direct and practical. I'm just collecting cans. That wasn't my question. I looked up at her. Maybe 40, wearing chef's white stained with sauce and exhaustion. Her name tag said Maria. Yeah, I'm hungry. Come inside. I'll make you something. Casablanca restaurant. I'd driven past it hundreds of times when I had a truck and places to drive to. Inside, it smelled like cilantro and grilled meat, and the kind of home cooking I hadn't tasted in months. Maria brought me a plate of enchiladas and rice, then sat across from me with her own cup of coffee. I'm Maria Gonzalez. I own this place. Daniel. I didn't offer my last name. How long you been on the street? 6 months. The truth came easier than I expected. What did you do before? Construction. Had my own company for 30 years. She nodded like this made perfect sense. What happened? Recession. Lost everything. I know that story. Lost my first restaurant in 2007. Had to start over from nothing. She said it without self-pity or drama. Just a fact about something that happened and something she did about it. How'd you start over? Worked for other people. Saved every dollar. Learned what I did wrong the first time. She gestured around the dining room. Opened this place 2 years ago. Smaller. Smarter. You hiring? Maria laughed, but not meanly. Can't afford to hire anyone. But I got maintenance stuff I can't do myself. Fixing things, painting, small repairs. You know anything about that? I can fix anything. Pays not much. $20 here, $40 there. Cash, when I have it. When do I start? Monday, 9 a.m. Don't show up drunk or high. I don't drink or use drugs. Good. Bring tools if you have them. After I finished eating, Maria walked me to the back door. Daniel? What I said about starting over. It's not easy, but it's possible. Why are you helping me? Because somebody helped me once. Mexican woman named Rosa who gave me dishwashing work when nobody else would hire me. She handed me a business card. Monday at 9. I walked to the public library and sat in a chair for the first time in weeks. The card said Casablanca Restaurant, with an address I could now navigate to by bus. For 6 months, I'd been trying to get back to my old life. Back to Daniel Whitaker Construction, back to the house in Irvine, back to the man who employed 17 people and drove a company truck. Sitting in that library chair, I realized my old life was gone forever. The man who'd lost everything wasn't going to magically become the man who'd built everything again, but maybe he could become someone else. Someone who fixed walk-in coolers and painted dining rooms and earned $20 at a time. Someone who existed in the world again. Even if it was a different world than the one he'd lost, that I put Maria's business card in my wallet next to my driver's license and the last photo of my family. 3 things that proved I was still Daniel Whitaker, even if I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. Monday was 3 days away. For the first time in months, I had somewhere to be. Monday morning. I arrived at Casablanca at 8:45 a.m. Maria was already inside, prepping vegetables for lunch service. Walk-in coolers acting up, she said without preamble. Temperatures running too high. Can you look at it? The cooler was a standard commercial unit, maybe 10 years old. I spent 20 minutes checking connections, cleaning coils, adjusting the thermostat. The compressor was working too hard because the condenser coils were clogged with grease and dust. Need some degreaser and a wire brush. I told Maria. She pointed to a supply closet. Whatever you need. 2 hours later, the cooler was running at proper temperature. Maria tested it herself, nodding approval. How much do I owe you? $20? Make it 30. Good work. She paid me cash from the register. 3 $10 bills that felt like victory. Got bathroom lights that flicker. Can you come back Wednesday? Yes, ma'am. Wednesday's job was rewiring 2 bathroom fixtures. Friday, I patched a roof leak over the kitchen. The following Monday, I painted the dining room's back wall where water damage had stained the plaster. Small jobs. Simple problems. Work I could do with basic tools and 30 years of construction knowledge. Maria never asked about my living situation. Never commented on my appearance or offered charity beyond fair payment for honest work. She treated me like a contractor, not a homeless man. Other employees accepted my presence without drama. Manuel, the cook, sometimes shared his lunch during slow afternoons. Rosa, the server, practiced English with me while I worked. Normal workplace conversations about family, weather, Lakers games. After 3 weeks, Maria made an offer. You need an address for job applications? Use the restaurant. I'll hold your mail. You do that. Manuel did it when he first got here from Guadalajara. Rosa did it when she left her husband. People need addresses. Having an address opened doors that homelessness had slammed shut. I could apply for day labor jobs that required contact information. I could register with temp agencies. I could exist on paper again. The work stayed irregular. 3 hours here, 5 hours there. Sometimes Maria had projects, sometimes she didn't. But the money was reliable when it came. And the routine gave structure to days that had been shapeless for months that I started showering at the truck stop every other day instead of weekly. Bought clean clothes from the Goodwill. Kept my tools organized in a toolbox instead of a grocery bag. Small improvements that felt enormous after months of decline. In October, a contractor named Jeff Morrison stopped by the restaurant for lunch. He recognized quality work when he saw the bathroom lighting I'd installed. "Who did your electrical?" "Guy named Daniel," Maria said. "Does good work." Jeff left his business card. "Tell Daniel to call me. I might have some weekend work." That evening, Maria handed me the card. "This could be good for you. What if he finds out I'm homeless? You think he cares where you sleep if you can do the work?" I called Jeff from the restaurant's phone. He needed help with a concrete pour Saturday morning. Cash payment at the end of the day. "I remember your work from the Bayside project," he said. "You built that retaining wall that's still perfect after 10 years. Someone remembered my work. Someone connected Daniel the homeless man with Daniel Whitaker Construction. Saturday morning, I showed up at Jeff's job site with clean clothes and organized tools. Ready to work with a crew again. Ready to build something that would last. For the first time in 8 months, I felt like I might survive this. Saturday morning at the Costa Mesa job site felt like stepping back into my real life. Jeff Morrison's crew was professional and experienced, the kind of workers I used to hire when Daniel Whitaker Construction was running full crews. "Daniel, meet Tom and Steve. We're pouring a foundation today." Working with concrete again, I felt muscle memory returning. The rhythm of mixing and pouring, the satisfaction of creating something permanent. These were skills that recession couldn't take away. "You've done this before," Tom observed as I smoothed a section of sidewalk. "Once or twice." They didn't need to know about the hundreds of foundations I'd poured over 30 years. Better to let my work speak for itself. Jeff paid me $120 cash at sunset. More money than I'd made in any single day since losing the house. "Good work today. Can you come back next Saturday?" "Absolutely." The following weekend was framing work. After that, roofing repairs. Jeff started calling me regularly, and other contractors noticed quality work when they saw it. "Where'd you find this guy?" One asked Jeff. "Daniel? He's been around construction forever. Solid worker." Being part of a crew again reminded me who I used to be. Not the homeless man sleeping behind buildings, but the contractor who understood how things fit together, how to solve problems with tools and experience. But I was careful about personal information. When conversation turned to families or weekend plans, I kept my answers vague. "You live around here?" Steve asked during lunch break. "Close enough." "Married? Kids?" "Complicated situation right now." The crew accepted my privacy without pushing. Construction workers understood that everyone had stories they didn't share. By November, I was earning enough to consider options beyond sleeping rough. The weekly motel room cost $180, but I'd saved $340 from restaurant work and weekend jobs. Maria noticed the improvement in my appearance. "You look better. More like yourself. Feel better too. Thanks for giving me a chance." "You gave yourself the chance. I just provided the cooler that needed fixing." Jeff's projects became regular weekend work. Foundation pours, concrete repairs, small commercial jobs. Nothing glamorous, but steady income from men who respected experience over circumstances. I started carrying myself differently. Standing straighter, making eye contact, participating in crew conversations instead of just listening. The work wasn't enough for an apartment deposit or truck payment, but it was enough to eat regularly, shower consistently, and save a few dollars each week. More importantly, it was enough to remember that I still had value as a worker. That 30 years of construction knowledge hadn't disappeared with my business license. One Saturday evening, Jeff handed me my pay and said, "Daniel, you ever think about getting back into contracting? The market's still pretty rough. It's coming back. Slowly. Guys with your experience are going to be in demand." I thanked him and walked to the bus stop, thinking about his words. Getting back into contracting would require licenses, insurance, bonding, startup capital. It would require becoming Daniel Whitaker Construction again instead of Daniel the Day Laborer. That felt impossible from where I was sitting. But 6 months ago, earning $120 for a day's work had felt impossible too. The bus ride took me past the neighborhood where I used to live. Houses I'd admired, streets I'd driven when checking on job sites, the life I'd built and lost. But instead of feeling bitter, I felt something like hope. Not for getting my old life back, but for building something new. Something smaller maybe, but something mine. The motel room was a step toward that future. A place to shower, store tools, receive mail, exist privately again. On Sunday, I counted my savings and made the decision. Tomorrow, I'd rent my first private space in 8 months. The Stardust Motel wasn't much to look at. Single-story building from the 1960s, faded blue paint, and a neon sign missing half its letters. But the weekly rate was $180, and the room had a kitchenette, cable TV, and a door that locked from inside. My own space. After 8 months of public visibility, privacy felt overwhelming. The room was small, double bed, tiny table, bathroom with a shower that had decent water pressure. Clean enough, quiet enough, safe enough. Perfect. I unpacked my 2 duffel bags into dresser drawers. Hung my 3 clean shirts in the closet. Arranged my tools in the corner where they'd be secure. The kitchenette had a mini fridge and microwave. I could store food now instead of buying single meals. Plan ahead instead of surviving hour by hour. That first evening, I sat on the bed and watched television. Local news about traffic and weather and politics. Normal problems for normal people. I felt like I was rejoining the world after months of exile. The luxury of a private shower, unlimited hot water, no time limits or worried looks from facility managers. I stood under the spray for 20 minutes, washing away months of public bathrooms and truck stop sinks. Clean clothes felt different when you knew you could keep them clean. I did laundry at the motel's coin machines, folding shirts and jeans with care instead of stuffing them into plastic bags. Maria noticed the change immediately. You found a place. Motel room. Not permanent, but it's mine. Good for you. Address is the same. She'd been holding mail for me at the restaurant. DMV renewal notices, voter registration, official papers that proved I still existed on government databases. Work continued at both ends. Maria's restaurant provided steady small jobs, plumbing repairs, electrical fixes, painting, and maintenance. Jeff's weekend crew provided larger projects and better pay. Between both income sources, I could cover the motel room week to week with money left over for food and bus fare. Not prosperity, but stability. I started making lists in a notebook. Tools I needed to replace. Jobs I could pursue with proper equipment. Steps toward rebuilding some version of professional life. The motel became base camp for recovery rather than final destination. A place to shower and plan and store possessions while figuring out what came next. Other residents were mostly long-term tenants, older men working day labor, women with complex situations, people existing in the economy's margins. We nodded politely in the parking lot, but kept our conversations brief. Everyone understood the need for privacy. My phone service was still disconnected, but Jeff and Maria could reach me through the motel's main number. Enough communication for work without the expense of monthly cellular bills. Evenings, I walked around the neighborhood. Fast food restaurants, auto repair shops, small businesses serving working-class customers. Not the suburban prosperity I'd lost, but a community where effort could earn respect. Some nights, I called Linda from the payphone outside the motel office. She'd answer carefully, like she wasn't sure what version of Daniel she'd be talking to. You sound better. I am better. Working regular jobs. Got a place to stay. That's good, Daniel. Really good. We didn't talk about reconciliation or visiting or what happened next. Just basic information about survival and stability. She was protecting herself from hope until I could prove this improvement would last. Jessica called the motel room one evening in December. Dad, Mom gave me this number. How are you? Better, sweetheart. Much better. I'm working now. Engineering firm in Sacramento. I've got my own apartment. Pride and guilt competed in my chest. Pride that she'd achieved everything we'd planned. Guilt that I'd missed her graduation and early career milestones. I'm so proud of you. Dad, are you okay? Really okay. Getting there. It's been a tough year, but I'm getting back on my feet. After we hung up, I sat in my motel room thinking about truth and timing. Jessica deserved to know what had happened to her father, but she also deserved to know when I was stable enough to be her father again. The weekly motel room was proof that stability was possible, that Daniel Whitaker could exist in the world again. Even if he couldn't afford the world he used to inhabit, that IT was a beginning, not an ending. But after 8 months of endings, any beginning felt like victory. 18 months after losing everything, I finally had enough stability to tell my daughter the truth. July 2011, sitting in my motel room on a Sunday evening, I dialed Jessica's number for the first time since missing her graduation. She answered on the second ring. "Hello, Jessica, it's Dad." "Dad." Her voice brightened, then grew cautious. "How are you? Where have you been? I need to tell you some things. About why I missed your graduation. About what really happened to the business." "Okay, I'm listening." I'd rehearsed this conversation for weeks, but the actual words felt heavier than practice. The construction company didn't just restructure. It died. The recession killed it completely. I lost the house, the trucks, everything. I was homeless for over a year. Silence on the other end. "Then homeless?" "Dad, what do you mean homeless?" "Sleeping in my truck until it got repossessed. Then sleeping on the street. Eating at shelters. Looking for day labor work." "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I was supposed to be the one helping you. Because admitting I'd failed meant admitting that everything I'd taught you about hard work and success was wrong." Jessica was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, more adult. "Dad, where are you now? Are you safe? I have a motel room. I'm working regular jobs again. Small stuff, but steady income. I'm okay." "What kind of jobs?" "Restaurant maintenance, weekend construction work, small repairs. It's not Daniel Whitaker construction, but it pays the bills." "Dad, I have money saved. I can help you get an apartment, buy tools, whatever you need." The offer touched me and broke my heart simultaneously. My daughter, offering to rescue her father with money she'd earned while I was sleeping behind dumpsters. "Jessica, that's not why I called. I called because I owed you the truth. Because missing your graduation was the worst thing that happened in this whole mess. I was worried about you. Mom said you were handling business stuff, but I knew something was wrong. Your mom was protecting me, and protecting you from knowing how far I'd fallen. Are you going to be okay? Really okay?" "I think so. It's going to take time to rebuild, but I'm working towards something better than this motel room. Can I visit? I want to see you." "I'd like that. But Jessica, I need you to understand. I'm not the same person who taught you to read blueprints. I don't have answers anymore. I'm still figuring out basic survival." "Dad, you're still my father. That doesn't change because you lost money." After we hung up, I sat in the motel room thinking about identity and family, and what it means to be someone's father when you can't provide the stability fathers are supposed to provide. Jessica, and I made plans for her to visit the following month. She'd drive down from Sacramento, take me to dinner, see my current life without judgment or pity. The prospect terrified and excited me equally. Terrified because she'd see how far I'd fallen. Excited because we could rebuild our relationship on truth instead of lies. I'd spent 18 months learning to survive without the infrastructure of normal life. Now I needed to learn how to be a father without the infrastructure of success. That seemed harder than learning to sleep on concrete or find work without transportation. Being homeless was a condition I could endure. Being a failed father felt like an identity I couldn't change, but Jessica's voice on the phone suggested otherwise. She didn't sound like she was talking to a failure. She sounded like she was talking to her father, who'd gone through something terrible and was slowly finding his way back. Maybe that was enough to build on. Maybe being a father wasn't about having all the answers, but about being honest when you didn't have any answers at all. The next morning, I walked to work at Casablanca with something I hadn't felt in nearly 2 years. Anticipation for the future instead of just endurance of the present. Maria noticed the change immediately. "You look different today." "Good different. Talked to my daughter last night. Really talked to her. About time. Family's the only thing that matters when everything else is gone." She was right. I'd lost the business, the house, the trucks, the reputation. But I hadn't lost the relationship that mattered most, even if I'd damaged it with lies and silence. Repairing that relationship would take time and honesty and patience. But it was work I knew how to do, even if the tools were different than the ones I'd used for construction. August 2011. I took 2 buses to get to Maple Street. carrying a thermos of coffee and wearing my cleanest work shirt. 15 months since I'd lost the house, but I needed to see it one more time. The neighborhood looked exactly the same. Mature trees, well-maintained lawns, the quiet prosperity of Orange County suburbia. I'd moved here in 1987 when Jessica was 2 years old. Believing this was where successful people lived, I parked myself on the bus bench across the street and studied the house I'd built with my own hands in 1994. Custom design. Every detail planned for our family's needs. The kitchen window where Linda used to watch the kids play in the backyard. The driveway where I'd taught Jessica to change a tire when she turned 16. New people live there now. A family with young children whose toys were scattered across the front lawn. Bright plastic playground equipment where my vegetable garden used to be. The front door was painted blue instead of the burgundy Linda had chosen. New mailbox, different landscaping, small changes that announced this house belonged to someone else now, but the bones were still mine. The foundation I'd poured in precise lines. The framing I'd measured twice and cut once. The electrical work I'd done to code and beyond code, because it was going to power my family's life. A man about my age came out of the garage carrying a bucket and sponge. Saturday morning car washing, just like I used to do. He moved with the contentment of someone whose biggest concern was whether to use the chamois or the microfiber cloth. I watched him work for 10 minutes. The careful attention to detail. The satisfaction of completing a simple task well. The unconscious assumption that this house, this life, this routine would continue unchanged. I'd felt that same security once. The certainty that came from building something solid, paying bills on time, planning for the future with confidence that the future would accommodate those plans. The man worked methodically around his sedan, paying special attention to the chrome bumper, completely absorbed in making it shine, the way I used to wash my work trucks on weekend mornings. He didn't notice the homeless man sitting on the bus bench across the street. Watching someone else live in the house that used to be home. I finished my coffee and stood up. No nostalgia, no bitterness, just recognition that this chapter was closed. The house would shelter this new family the same way it had sheltered mine. The craftsmanship would endure long after both families had moved on. Daniel Whitaker construction was gone, existed now only on old permits and faded yard signs around the county. But the houses remained, the concrete work held. The electrical systems functioned exactly as designed. That was its own kind of success. Regardless of ownership, walking to the bus stop, I passed other houses I'd worked on over the years. The Henderson addition from 1998. The Chun garage conversion from 2003. Small monuments to 30 years of showing up. Measuring carefully, building things to last. The bus back to Santa Ana carried me through neighborhoods in transition. Working-class communities where people like Maria and Manuel and Rosa built lives from day labor and restaurant work and small dreams realized one paycheck at a time. My motel room felt like home when I returned. Not because it was beautiful or permanent, but because it was mine. A place where I could close the door and plan tomorrow without asking permission. On the table, I'd left Jessica's phone number and the date of her visit next weekend. Evidence that some relationships survive even when everything else gets foreclosed. I'd built houses for 30 years. But I was learning that the most important construction project was rebuilding a life from whatever materials remained after everything else was gone. Outside my window, the sun was setting over Orange County, casting long shadows across parking lots and strip malls and all the places where people like me learned to exist again. I opened my notebook and made a list of tools I needed to buy with next week's paycheck. Small steps toward whatever came next, whatever I could build from here. The man washing his car in my old driveway would never know that the homeless guy on the bus bench had poured that concrete, wired that garage, measured twice and cut once to create the foundation his family called home. But I knew. And that knowledge felt like something worth building on.